Hi, my name's Althea and this is my Booktube channel. I am 22 years old, I'm from Scotland, I am an agender lesbian, my pronouns are any pronouns. I am a translator and interpreter, currently only doing voluntary work right now because of the state of the economy, so I have so much time right now to talk about books, so I decided now is the perfect time to give this channel a go. So I thought today I would start by doing the Booktube Newbie tag, which I have on my laptop down here, and then just quickly go through this massive pile of my favourite books. Also, please excuse Susie Sheep, this is where she lives. I have nothing more to say about that. So the first Booktube Newbie tag question is, why did you start this channel? And I guess I've kind of sort of answered that already. I have run a blog for almost a year now. I've done it on and off in the past as well, but never really stuck to it because I never found my niche. Sorry about that motorbike going past. But now I have found my niche and I really enjoy it. I recently started up an Instagram to promote sapphic books and I thought, where else can I push this agenda? So here I am. I've been wanting to do this on and off for a while as well. I think about a year ago I was really considering it and I just didn't. But here I am now. I have so much time because I am unemployed. So I'll better use the time. Why I'm doing this right now is because my brother is in online classes, so I'm less likely to be interrupted by people shouting up the stairs to get me to do the dishes. Question 2 is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? Queer books. I love to talk about them. I love to encourage people to pick them up because I feel that they are criminally underhyped. So that, and several interpreting teachers have said that I have a lovely voice to listen to, so you're welcome in advance for that. What are you most excited for about this new channel? I am most excited to talk to other people about sapphic books. I have like 100 or so followers on Twitter, so not many people there, and so this gives me another opportunity to find more people who are interested in the same things as me, and if I can encourage at least one person to pick up a sapphic book, I will be over the moon. Why do you love reading? I have loved reading for years. When I was in nursery school, it was like 3, 4 I think it is. Instead of the teachers reading to me, I used to read to the teachers. I was that child. I've always loved reading since then. When I was in primary 5, so I think I would have been 9, don't quote me on that though, we read The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk and I completely fell in love with the book, and in the time that we had to read it once I read it twice and I was just obsessed with it. And then I just grew up with reading. I've always loved reading. I had my library card since I was very young and I would do all these like reading competitions at the library. There was like a thing at primary school one year where you got a medal if you read a certain number of books, and I still have that medal somewhere. But I love reading. I don't have a specific why, I just do. What book or series got you into reading? So obviously The Thief Lord was the first book that I properly fell in love with. I didn't read the series that will not be mentioned on this channel until I was like 11, 12. Like I was about to go into high school was the first time I read it. So I think the first possibly series I read was the Georgia Nicholson series by Louise Renison. They're hilarious. They do not stand up to the test of time, unfortunately, but they're absolutely hilarious. I loved those books so much. The film is great. The soundtrack, chef's kiss. And then probably Twilight. I used to read super quickly when I was younger, and I brought I think it was New Moon I brought on holiday to France one year, and I read it on the way there and didn't bring any other books with me, so I read that book in like a day. And I was like obsessed with it, and then I've still not read Breaking Dawn. I own it. I've owned it for years and I've still not read it. But I will not be reading that new one with the pomegranate on the cover. I can't even remember what it's called. What questions would you ask your favourite booktubers? I don't know if I have an like an answer for this one. Absolutely no clue. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Probably the challenge of not having my family interrupt me whilst filming. I'm not sure. I think I have a little bit of anxiety about doing this. I don't want people in real life to find out about it. But yeah, that's about it, I think. When did you start reading? Again, I've sort of explained this already. Back when I was in nursery school, in fact, there was a book that we had to read. It was something to do with like animals, and I was so sure that the word orangutan was pronounced orange utan, and that's just what I remember from one of the first books I've read, just putting my hand up when they asked what it was called and so confidently shouting out orange utan, only to be shot down. Where do you read? I read everywhere. I read in my bed a lot. I like to read in the kitchen, which is weird. There's like no distractions and there's really good lighting and hot drinks. I read on the train when I went to and from university, wherever. I just love reading. What kind of books do you like to read? I like to read almost everything. I still am. I love fantasy. I used to always say that fantasy was my favourite genre, but over the last year I've really got into contemporary and romance books. Who would have seen that coming? Not me. I don't read a whole lot of horror. I've started to try and get into it more recently, but I'm just a wimp. I hate gore. It's just not for me. Thrillers are also not really my thing. They have to be like really good for me to like them. Other than that, I don't read a lot of poetry. I think there's only like 3 poets I like: Wilfred Owen, Mary Oliver, and Sappho, and they're all gay. But other than that, there's not that much. I don't read a lot of classics. But everything else. Apparently that's the end of the Booktube Newbie tag, so I thought I would just go through and share some of my favourite books with you. I have The One Season by Samantha Shannon. I love everything Samantha Shannon's written. I saw her and Holly Black talk at the Edinburgh Book Festival last year and it was so great. She read a little bit of Priory. I wanted to get my books signed, but the event finished so late at night and I needed to get a train home. But The Bone Season was the first book I read by her. The ending of this never fails to make me cry. I don't really know what genre it is. It's somewhere between fantasy, sci-fi and dystopian. It follows Paige. She is Irish. She is a dreamwalker, you think? Yeah. So she's a clairvoyant. She can break into people's minds. And this is extremely illegal in this Scion, London. So she, just by being alive, she's illegal. And I don't really want to tell you much more than that without spoiling it, but it's very good. The 4th book is coming out in January and I'm so excited. I will be rereading this soon. I love this series so much. A recent read for me, and it is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I read this, actually it was my first book of 2020, and I just fell in love. This also made me cry. This follows Rin. She lives in the south of her country, which is kind of more of a less affluent area, and she wants to escape that life. She wants to escape the arranged marriage that she has set up for her, and so she takes this test to get into one of the elite military academies in her country, and against all odds she manages to get into the most prestigious, and it goes on from there. This is amazing. I love this book so much. I'm planning on reading the sequel this month because I somehow got approved for an arc of the last book. I don't understand why either, but this book is just amazing. Adult fantasy, really inspired by Chinese history, particularly the rape of Nanking, which I never knew about before reading this and have since researched a lot. So there are some really heavy trigger warnings, and I think they are on R.F. Kuang's website, so I really recommend checking them out before you pick this up. But I really recommend you do pick this up. Next is The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis, which is getting a gorgeous new cover next year, and I'm trying to stop myself from pre-ordering the new cover. But this is the first book in a duology. The sequel also comes out next year. I'm so excited. This follows 5 girls: Aster, Violet, Tansy, Mallow and Clementine, and they are good luck girls. They basically work in a pleasure house, and they were sold there when they were children, and they were branded with this kind of magical flower on their neck. One day, I think it's Clementine, accidentally kills one of the men that visits their, I can't remember what they're called. There's a specific name for these pleasure houses, but I can't remember. She accidentally kills a man, and the 5 of them have to go on the run, and it's just really great. It's really fast paced, there's so much action. There is a sapphic side romance in this, which is so cute, and there's the possibility of one with the main character, and I really hope that it happens in book 2. I think 3 of the 5 girls are black. I think it's Aster, Clementine, and I want to say Mallow. It's Mallow or Tansy, I can't remember. It's really great. It's a Western inspired fantasy, a non-binary author. Pick it up. This is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Matar and Max Gladstone. I read this really recently, I think only 2 months ago, and I fell in love. It has some of the most beautiful writing I've ever read. It follows Red and Blue, who are on opposite sides of a time war, and they're kind of trying to sabotage each other, and they leave each other kind of snarky little notes, so that they're like aware that it was the other one that foiled their plans, but they end up kind of forming like an enemies to lovers romance. I've heard it compared to Killing Eve in Space, and I can kind of see that, but like this stands all on its own. It's gorgeous, gorgeous writing. Like it's sci-fi, but it's not super technological, like jargon sci-fi. It's really good. Like I can't recommend this enough. It's so short and you can read it in a day. Next is actually the duology. It's the Once and Future duology by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. This is a sci-fi retelling of Arthurian legend, where Arthur is, in this reincarnation, Ari, a girl, and she's on a spaceship stuck there with the reincarnation of Merlin, who's his teenage boy, and it's really great. I think almost every character, maybe bar 3 in this series, are queer. It has a sapphic relationship at the heart of it, the most amazing found family, which made me cry at the end of the second book. I've always loved Arthurian legend retellings. I grew up with the Merlin TV show and loved it. The second book is more of a classic Arthurian legend retelling, as in it's like more historical fantasy, whereas this is sci-fi. It's just so action-packed. I almost said action-paced. It's really great. Next is probably one of the only books on here that has no queer characters in it, and it is the Nakano Thrift Shop by Hiromi Kawakami. Hiromi Kawakami is my favourite Japanese author. I've read 4 books by her. This is by far my favourite. Not a lot happens in her books, I'm not gonna lie, but the writing is beautiful, and I got so invested in the characters in this one. This is translated work, and I love reading translated work wherever I can, because I know how difficult literary translation is, which is why I don't do it. And this follows, I can't remember her name, is it Hitomi? Hitomi. And she starts work at the Nakano Thrift Shop, and it's basically about her day-to-day work there. Follows all the different characters, what they get up to in their personal lives, how they are all kind of interconnected, and even like the chapter titles in Hiromi Kawakami's books are so simple, but I think they're so pretty, like rectangular number 2, paperweight, bus, letter opener, big dog, celluloid, sewing machine, dress, bowl, apples, gin and punch ball, and most of them are related to, so like each chapter is related to that thing, and most of the time it's something that's found in the thrift shop. And again, this is sort of, I suppose you could call it found family. This one also made me cry. Her books are super short. I have so much respect for Alison Powell who translates them. Pick them up. Next is another very recent read which very recently became a favourite, and it is The Truth About Keeping Secrets by Savannah Brown. I followed Savannah Brown for years. I used to watch her YouTube channel back when she had really long brown hair and did a lot of poetry, and you can really tell that her poetry has had so much influence on this book. So this follows our main character Sydney. Her dad has recently died in a car crash, and at his funeral one day she sees this popular girl, June, at the back of the funeral, and she starts wondering why she's there, and then she starts thinking, like, did my dad die in a car crash or was it something more suspicious? And so this is pitched as a thriller, but I would say it's more of a contemporary with some thriller aspects, because the thriller doesn't really come into action until the end. But again, this is beautiful writing. As I said, you can tell that Savannah Brown is a poet because the metaphors, the writing, this is just so beautiful. It has a sapphic romance, which I love. It's friends to lovers, which is my favourite trope. Yeah, if you're kind of iffy on thrillers like I am, I still definitely recommend you pick this one up. Next is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, which I actually read on my Kindle and then had to purchase a copy for myself. This follows Michael as he is growing up in, I think, London, somewhere in England. He is half Jamaican and half Cypriot, the word, I'm not too sure, from Cyprus. His mum's from Cyprus. And he is growing up in London, or wherever in England it is, growing up gay, growing into himself, finding his love for poetry, finding out where he fits into the world, and finding his love for drag. And the last few pages of this book are just absolutely phenomenal. It's told in verse, and actually one of my favourite artists that I follow on Instagram did the art for it. It's, again, super quick. You can read this in an afternoon. It deserves all the hype that it gets. It's just fantastic. Next is All Men Want to Know by Nina Bouraoui. This is a recent translation into English of the original French, which I have up here. Tous les hommes désirent naturellement savoir. I bought the French original because I want to read more in French, basically. It's my second language. I have a degree in it. I've studied there. And I wanted to see how it compared with the English translation. I much prefer the French cover, I'm not gonna lie. This is an autobiographical novel, if I can speak. It follows Nina as she's growing up as a half French, half Algerian young girl, growing up and realising her sexuality. We see a lot of Paris's lesbian bars in, I think, the 1980s. I'm looking at the blurbs on the back. Yeah, the 1980s. It's a lot about her identity. As I've said in the past, it's, to me, what Ruby Fruit Jungle was trying to be but failed. It's really great non-fiction. I highly recommend it. The writing goes back and forward, like into the past and into the more present, so like 1980s, and then back to her childhood. And it's not very linear, but it's very beautiful. It's a really great story. Can I call it a story if it's autobiographical? I'm not sure. It's a really great book. It is the second book in Geology, and I'm never going to shut up about this Geology because I love it so much. So this is All the Opacity by Morgan Lee Miller. The first book is All the Worlds Between Us. The first book was Morgan Lee Miller's first book she's ever published. It's sapphic, contemporary / romance. The first book I would say classifies as young adult, whereas this one's more maybe new adult. So the first book is kind of complicated to explain. It follows our main character Quinn. She is in high school. She has just missed out on qualifying for the Olympics as a swimmer. So she's training extra hard, and then Kennedy Reed comes back into her life, and Kennedy was her best friend growing up, her first kiss, and they hadn't spoken since. But it turns out that both Quinn and her brother kind of have a crush on her now, and it goes from there. This is a sequel. This is set 5 years, I think, in the future, in a sort of alternative timeline, because the 2020 Olympics took place in this. So if you missed the Olympics, like I do, this is for you. I love this series so much. This one particularly talks about the pressures of sport, about depression, and it's honestly a book that made me feel really seen. Also, if you like sports lesbians, like, this is for you. It's so good. Like, I need you to pick this series up. You can even read this one as a standalone. It stands by itself. Like, just please pick it up. Next Ever After by Case and Calendar. This gorgeous cover, like, you should judge this book by its cover. This follows Felix Love, who ironically has never been in love. He is trans, he is black, he is queer, and sometimes he feels like he is too much of a minority in that sense. And one day at art school, his pre-transition photos and his dead name are kind of posted about everywhere, and that kind of, the consequences of that fall into the rest of the story. And there's also like a kind of love triangle. I don't know how to explain this without spoiling anything. Like, I will leave all the links below, don't worry. But it's absolutely beautiful. The love triangle, I just really wish that they'd taken it to a poly relationship at the end, but they didn't. But it's fine. And this book was absolutely beautiful. It talks a lot about identity, as you'd probably expect, and about how your identity with regards to your sexuality or your gender can change over time, and that's okay. And I think that was really comforting for me to read earlier in the year when I was questioning my gender. It's a really great book. You should pick it up. This next one is one that I read last month. I read as an ARC and I loved it so much. And it is Scapegracers by Hannah Abigail Clark. I know so many people love this book, and understandably so. This is my knee. I'm trying to get comfy, sorry. This is basically sapphic witches. Like, you shouldn't need to know more than that. When I was reading this, I compared in my head a lot to Jennifer's Body, the movie. So if you like that movie, I think you'll really like this book. This follows Sideways Pike. She is a teenage lesbian witch, and one day she is asked by the 3 popular girls to do a spell at their pre-Halloween party. So she comes along, she does the spell, and some things happen after that are maybe a bit unexpected, and the 4 of them become best friends and a coven, and it's very sapphic. It's very great. Like, I love it so much, and I can't believe we have to wait until next autumn for the sequel to come out, because I want it already, especially after that ending. But it's really great. I think I just knocked the camera. You're balanced on a suitcase that I'm too lazy to put away, so sorry. But this is a really great book, particularly for this time of year, but like, read it any time of year, just read it, it's great. And then finally, one that I need a sequel for is Descendant of the Crane by Joan He, I think her name is. This I was very lucky enough to read as an art last year, and I fell in love. This is I think it's a Chinese inspired fantasy. It follows Hesina. She is a princess. Her father has died recently under what is called natural causes, but Hesina doesn't quite believe that, so she takes up the throne in order to kind of investigate her father's death. There is forbidden magic in this. There is so much like political intrigue, so many twists and turns. Like, if you like thrillers, you'll like this. Even if you don't, I think you'll like it anyway. Like, there were characters at the beginning that I loved so much, and by the end, like, I hated them so much, because like, Joan's writing is just so I don't know how to describe it, it's just really good. So many twists and turns. Like, I guess the main kind of plot twist early on, but there are so many others that I loved. Okay, the romance, not my favourite, but I can get past that. But the ending really left it kind of open to a sequel or a companion novel, and I am dying for it. Like, I'm so excited for Joan's next book. I've pre-ordered it already, but I really need her to continue this. So that's me. Those are my favourite books. If you have any suggestions for the channel, I'd love to hear them. Suggestions for videos, anything. And yeah, I will hopefully see you soon with another video once I can think of ideas for it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.